at 9:10 a.m. The Superstation, the future of radio, the future of history. Dr. Michael Imhotep. I just granted a doctorate to you, Brother Imhotep, because you deserve it. He's in the studio with us. Hey, before we go any further, get in the first of, I'm sure, many shameless plugs to come. I'm just joking. Hey, when and where's your lecture coming up?
Yeah, well, I'm doing a 2-day lecture series this weekend at the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, located at 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. For those who don't know, Highland Park is right inside of Detroit. It's taking place Saturday, February 3rd, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., Sunday, February 4th, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And the first day we'll deal with breaking the chains. While we celebrate Black History Month, exposing the myths, some of the things I talked about. I got a lot of other stuff in store. We'll deal with the history of African American History Month, why it was created, what we need to do to make it relevant for the day in the future. We'll deal with who was here in this country before Native Americans came into existence. We'll dispel some other myths, like why the Black John Hanson wasn't president, a lot of other things like that. Then the second day, Sunday, February 4th, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., we'll deal with the light of ancient Kemet awakens the African mind. The light of ancient Egypt awakens the African mind. Visit our website. Information is at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can also call 313-462-0003, 313-462-0003.
When one begins the study of one's own history, I'm talking about specifically for African Americans.
Sure.
What are some of the myths that we have to overcome about ourselves? And you know what I'm talking about. Because it's not like I wasn't told anything about myself.
Right.
Some of the things I was told about myself simply were not true or were misleading. I'm sure you run into folks who have those issues all the time. And I'm curious, what kinds of things do we think or have learned about ourselves that maybe we need to take a second look at?
Well, one of the big myths is that our history first started in this country August 20th, 1619, when a Dutch warship brought 20-some-odd Africans to Jamestown, Virginia. Even though that did happen, it was actually an English warship as opposed to a Dutch warship, even though that did happen. Even when you look at the enslavement of African people, the Spanish were taking Africans into the territory called South Carolina in the 1520s. About 100 years before that. That's not even talked about. But African people, we've been here in this land going back at least 51,700 years, even before Native Americans came into existence. So there's so many myths. And when our children learn that their history starts in this country, conquered and shackled and chained, conquered by Europeans, it automatically gives them a subconscious inferiority complex.
Yes.
Okay? So you're automatically starting at -10, trying to dig your way out. All right. Another myth is that Columbus discovered America. Well, a lot of people know that he didn't discover America because they say there were already people there. Well, that's one reason. But the other reason why is he never came to the land we call here. He never came to the land we call the United States of America. Right. So you look at where he goes on his 4 voyages. First voyage, August 3rd, 1492. He sets sail in the Nina, the Pinta, and Santa Maria. He goes into the Caribbean. He goes into Central America, South America. He's in Cuba, Haiti, Puerto Rico, Honduras, places like this. He never comes to the land we call the United States of America.
Right.
Okay. So why in Detroit they have a statue of Christopher Columbus? I still can't figure that out. That makes no sense. He was a master of genocide. Why? He never even came here.
I was about to say, when you read his writings, we're led to believe that he was an explorer and a discoverer. He was a conqueror and a murderer.
He's a conqueror and a murderer and a con man, like the one we have in the White House.
Wow.
Yeah.
Christopher Columbus and Donald Trump. We'll have to talk about that sometime. What are the impacts of having bad information? And I could talk about this all day, but I'd love to get your perspective, Mike. Sure. What are the impacts of having bad information about yourself, particularly on your children as they grow up? You talked about starting off in the hole, feeling that you're inferior. But there's some other impacts that I have seen on our young people.
Well, you know, what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So if our history and culture had no value, it would not have been taken away from us. It was taken away from us because it was very powerful. And the history and culture gives you your foundation. It gives you your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. And this influences your worldview It gives you your cultural paradigm that you see reality through. It influences your economic empowerment and your political empowerment. So when you have bad information, you make stupid decisions. Okay, so this oftentimes is what we're operating based upon. Right. So it's extremely important. And in every ethnic group in America, for the most part, they have their history and culture intact, and they use that to fight for scarce wealth, power, and resources.
Interesting. Another question I'm going to ask, and we're going to go to the phone lines. Sure. That was 313-778-7600, by the way, folks. 313-778-7600. I want to get into this whole concept of self-image.
Okay.
Specifically, I grew up in a very, very colorized black community, or color-conscious black community.
Right.
If you were light-skinned, if you had straighter hair, you had favor. You had advantage.
Right.
If you were a light-skinned black girl with straight hair, all the brothers loved you. If you was a light-skinned brother with wavy hair, all the girls loved you, and everybody else got the leftovers once those had been picked through.
Right.
But where did that come from? How is it that the image of the white European became a standard of beauty for us?
Came from white people. It came from white supremacy.
But white people didn't say, "Hey, let me slow down." I started to make a statement. I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
I know that whites gave preference to lighter skinned blacks, and that's because there was half their kids in many instances. That's how they got light.
Right.
But how did we take that on ourselves? How did we all of a sudden start treating ourselves that way? White people didn't tell us. You treat each other based on color, even though they did. Is that where we got it from?
It's based upon the way they treated those, and it is based upon the media. So based upon the way oftentimes they treated those African Americans who were fairer, lighter skin, who had wavy hair, straighter hair, things like this. So it's important to understand that racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Racism comes out of the concept of white supremacy, and it's designed to preserve genetic white survival. So racism has nothing to do with not liking people, calling people racial epithets, things like that. People have it totally confused. That's bigotry.
Right.
Okay. Racism is a power structure. So if you go back to 1638 in the colony of Maryland, you had a doctrine called the doctrine of exclusion. The doctrine of exclusion stated that Negroes should never be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. It's later going to be expanded to state that Negroes should be relegated to a non-compensated, non-competitive managed workforce for the comfort building of white society. So you're going to have this, you have things like this encoded into the laws. Okay.
Yeah, it was legislated.
It was legislated.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with public policy.
Yeah.
Public policy has been kicking our behinds for over 246 years in this country, 350 years, whatever it is. Public policy has been kicking our behinds. So this is why we have to understand law. So, and then you have the law, and then you have the distorted images fed to us through the media. Okay. Whether it's the minstrel shows, going back to 1828, 1829 with T.D. Rice, Thomas Dartmouth Rice, who was a white man who created the Jim Crow character. And he's known as the father of the minstrel shows. And he puts on blackface and tattered-torn clothing and adopts a Southern dialect, and it's designed to lampoon and make fun of African people. This is during slavery. Well, the minstrel shows become the most popular form of entertainment in the country.
Right.
Not just in the South, but also in the North. Right. So when you have books, when you have children's books like 10 Little N-Word Boys, when you have cartoons and caricatures and things like this that dehumanize African Americans, this comes out of an ideology of white supremacy that did not always exist, by the way.
We were affected by. Let me tell you a couple of things that came to mind. One, I was watching a documentary about Bob Marley.
Okay.
And they were talking to Rita Marley, his widow.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how when she first met Bob, she wasn't real crazy about him because he was light, and how all the women, all the girls back then wanted the darkest man they could find. And I thought, what a concept. That's the absolute opposite.
In Jamaica, though.
In Jamaica, yeah. The absolute opposite of what had happened in this country.
Right. Because in Jamaica, they were allowed more to keep their culture. See, in this culture, in this country, for the most part, our history and culture was stripped away from us. In Jamaica, they were more allowed to keep their culture, and you're dealing with You're really dealing with the propaganda of the media and not having the history and culture to teach you to love your dark skin, to love your African features, things like this. And then, if you look at Malcolm X, for instance, right, and you go back to like the 1930s, things like this, and the brothers are wearing the conch hairstyles, and you got Cab Calloway and things like this, right? And they're doing this. They may not consciously think that they're trying to imitate Europeans, but this is what's taking place. And if you watch the Malcolm X movie, they're putting lye on their hair, which is burning their scalp.
Man, when I was a kid, I sat in the basement and saw some cousins of mine conch their hair.
Right.
And they went through the exact same procedure.
Right, exactly. So what happens is when the entertainers start doing something and the women like it, oh my God, then all of a sudden what used to be crazy, now that David Ruffin has it, now everybody wants to do it because all the women passing out looking at David Ruffin. Okay? So when the entertainers start embracing something like that, because the entertainers are oftentimes change agents, right? Either good or bad.
Right.
Okay? So when they embrace this and it gets accepted by the mass, then it gets accepted by the opposite sex.
Yes.
Then it gets adopted.
Something else that I came across recently, too, I was going through an old issue of Ebony magazine.
Okay.
And there was a huge ad in there for Natnola, which will lighten your skin. I think the ad said, great things happen to fair-skinned girls.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and thought about that and said, oh, my God, this is in a black publication.
Right.
And black folks are essentially demeaning themselves.
Absolutely.
Putting themselves down. And so I'm still at a quandary as to how in the world we allow that to become our standard of beauty.
Well, when you don't know who you are, you imitate who you've been taught to be. Okay, when you don't understand who you are, when you don't understand your history, you'll imitate. So these images are shown to you. You're shown to imitate your oppressor, to be like this. If you can get the light-skinned girl, you get the light-skinned girl when you acquire more a higher-paying job. You acquire a degree or something like this. You have things like the brown bag test. You have organizations
that want to vein test.
Yeah, blue vein test to keep darker-skinned people out. When you look at some of your HBCUs, even though our HBCUs are valued, right? When you look at some of the origins of some of the HBCUs, a lot of them were founded by white people. But also, some of them, like Howard, is going to be the lighter-skinned people who originally could go, oftentimes, and it's going to be the ones who were oftentimes the offspring of interracial relationships as well.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, those were white politicians, white senators, things like this, right? So when you study this history, you'll see this taking place, but this is all designed around the allocation of wealth, power, and resources into the hands of the dominant white society or those who do the bidding of the dominant white society.
Our very special guest, Michael Imhotep. We have, I've talked long enough. Let me get on the phone lines where we've got Harold on the line. Harold is online. Hey, Harold, thanks for calling.